When I was a little kid, I dreamed about the day that I would personally own my own Jeep. Like me, you might have been a dreamer or currently dreaming about the day that you get to buy your Jeep. But buying a vehicle in today's market can be overwhelming. With so many models, modifications, and potential horror stories, you could find yourself drowning in information. And today we're going to cut through the noise and tell you exactly what to look for. We're going to help you figure out what Jeep to look for, what matters most when buying, and how to avoid rookie mistakes. I'm Neil with SFJ 4x4 Simpson Family Jeeps, and there are a bunch of you who are new to the channel. So I want to take a brief moment and expand upon who is SFJ 4x4. We are a brick and mortar facility located in the beautiful Conneaut, Ohio, which is pretty much as far northeast as you get in the state of Ohio. And we are a Jeep only facility. We're comprised of a bunch of amazing individuals who have reasonably dedicated the last decade plus to only working on Jeeps. And that is extended to the point of doing content for you, our viewers, and all of our friends and family on the social pages. With that said, we are taking a moment to talk about some of the most common questions that are asked of us, or maybe the most common question that is asked of us based on the content that we have created for YouTube. Our how to buy Jeep series videos are arguably some of the most viewed videos that we have created. We get a lot of calls and emails from people who have seen the how to buy a TJ or JK or CJ videos. And that's great if you already know the exact model Jeep that you want. But this video is intended to be a little bit different. We're not going to be talking about the exact things to look for on a used Jeep. Instead, we're going to be addressing some of the broader concepts about what Jeep might be right for you, what fits your lifestyle, your daily driving needs, and the kind of modifications you might eventually want. This is intended to be a broad and general video regarding that question we often get about figuring out the right Jeep for you, the person dreaming about owning a Jeep. The vast majority of individuals in the used Jeep buying market today are largely going to be focused on the Wrangler platform, or at least that's the questions that we get most often. With roughly over 3.5 million JK and JL Wranglers and JT Gladiators sold in roughly the last 2 decades, we're going to be spending a bunch of time talking specifically to individuals who are interested in that platform. But we also understand that a lot of people call in because they see that Jeep brand name and it means something special to them. And we'll want to address some of that as we move forward. But this is arguably for everyone who wants a Jeep branded vehicle, but with the heavy focus on the Wrangler and Gladiator models. First and foremost, consciously set your goals and realistic expectations. At SFJ 4x4, our first question to any potential customer when they're inquiring about modifications for their vehicle or what vehicle would they be best suited for is, how do you plan to use the vehicle? Like literally, we do some vision casting with you and we say, picture yourself in the vehicle. What does every day look like for you? Does it sit in the garage Monday through Friday and then get pulled out on the weekends to go camping and exploring? Are you exploring forest access roads, or are you intending to earn every badge of honor that Jeep offers? Is the vehicle going to transport your family to and from school and sports practices and maybe get ice cream on Sundays. And if it ever sees a dusty path, that will be a cold day in hell. I don't know. That's really for you to decide. One of my major talking points is our job is not necessarily to weigh in on the merit of your utilization of the vehicle, but to meet you where you're at and attempt to do the modifications that you desire with excellence. Of course, everyone gets really excited over tire, wheels, and lift kits, and then arguably lights and fun accessories. Does your budget permit for those things? Is the price of entry, buying your Jeep, permit you to then modify it right away? Or will you have to replenish your budget with the intention to modify at a later date? This factor of budgeting is huge because we all can benchtop build and daydream until the cows come home. But realistically, the majority of us are constrained to the immediate financial parameters that we have available, both for purchasing the vehicle and our initial investment in the cool or wow factor items that we feel it needs right away. Even with those wow factor add-ons, you may be needing to perform some deferred maintenance, or you understand that you're getting a better price on the initial purchase because you have to fix something on the vehicle first. All of this is very normal in the used Jeep buying market, but you have to have a very realistic conversation with yourself about your own expectations, abilities, and budget to blend it all together. In that process, a quick tip is to really have an honest conversation about whether or not you want a Jeep that's ready to rock and roll and drive you on your next great adventure, or if you are willing to go slow and steady and build it and repair it slowly over time. Jeep branded vehicles have been synonymous with rugged individualism, dripping Americana, and this embrace of the Western spirit of adventure since they were conceptualized in the 1940s. While I would love to drone on and on about what those vintage Jeeps mean to us in modern times, realistically, the vast majority of people who call and email us are asking about Jeeps that reasonably have been built within the last 20 or 30 years. For purposes of this video, as I mentioned, we're going to largely be focusing on the convertible style vehicles, which, if you were to kind of overgeneralize them, you can talk about the Wrangler platforms and the convertible platforms. Now, realistically, we see the Wrangler model emerge in 1987, but there's a lot of people who are the average consumers who will oftentimes refer to the iconic CJ platforms as Wranglers, simply as a way to share that kinship of the fact the today's modern topless, doorless models share with their earlier ancestors. So while I am largely talking about modern vehicles, understand that a lot of this has to do with more that convertible doorless optioned Jeeps or full frame Jeeps than unibody Jeeps that are also widely available today. That's not to say that unibody Jeeps aren't worth investing in. I understand that there are absolutely capable Renegades and Patriots, and most certainly our older Grand Cherokees and, of course, that formidable XJ Cherokee were awesome off-road machines that I would still definitely recommend to a buyer. But the vast majority of people inquiring with us are about those more modern day Wrangler and Gladiator platforms. Modern day Wrangler and Gladiators have this charisma about them. It's hard for your standard car and driver motor trend-esque audience to really put their finger on it. And if you spend much time on the interwebs, you'll certainly hear people harass Jeep owners for the unique community that we are. Our vehicles are not particularly refined or fuel efficient or overly well built. They are this combination of grit and functionality and just enough bells and whistles to make us feel good about our ownership. Being a Jeep brand owner gives us this lineage of the American spirit that is virtually unmatched by any other vehicle manufacturer out there. So while constantly I'm addressing conversations about people who are already owners of SUVs like Suburbans or Escapes, the reality is that people oftentimes want a Jeep as a second or third vehicle to round out their options for their everyday driving experiences. We are the first to admit that there are pros and cons to virtually every brand and model vehicle on the road. A Jeep might not make sense to you if you are an individual who is commuting in an urban environment 5, 6, 7 days a week. But if you have the appropriate budget and you're looking for that weekend getaway toy that can drive you to the country or to the mountains or to the beach, it might be the perfect vehicle to add to your garage. However, if you do want to commute with a Jeep, you might choose to commute in a unibody constructed vehicle that has an independent suspension and a slightly more fuel efficient engine, and then save that full frame convertible Wrangler for your weekend adventures. It can make sense in both ways, but again, it's going to be a deeply personal decision. So you've had a realistic conversation with yourself and you figured out what model might make sense for your lifestyle and driving experience. Now you need to understand the key things to look for before buying. We're going to encourage you with a strong prejudice to consider the overall condition of the vehicle over the modifications that have been done to it. It's easy to get distracted by cool Jeep stuff, but basics matter more. As I mentioned previously, I've done a bunch of different videos on what to look for with specific models of Jeeps. So without going into entirely too much detail, I encourage you to check those out and understand that this list is highly abbreviated. Of course, maintenance records are key, but they're not the end-all be-all. Take them as part of the picture, not the full extent. Additionally, look for rust in common and uncommon places, signs of abuse, especially on older Wranglers that have a degree of modifications. Look for places where suspension or tires have hit hard in the wheel wells, or body panels may no longer be aligned correctly. Additionally, if there is fresh paint or undercoating on the vehicle, it does not necessarily always mean it was done with your best interest in mind. It could be covering up sins that the seller wants to hide. Do your best to understand the quality, condition, and age of the tires, suspension, and other aftermarket parts already installed on the vehicle, and ensure that they are the appropriate quality for how you intend to use the vehicle. Not all parts are created equal, and just because it looks shiny right here and now does not mean that in 6 to 8 months it's not going to fail because it is a economy subpar product that has been installed. Also, this is a huge one for me, but if it has any electronic modifications, definitely ensure that a professional, to the best of their ability, checks it out and ensures that it's been done in a safe manner, because we don't want to see any new to you purchases burned down shortly after you have sealed the deal. finding the right Jeep for you is half the battle. When you're looking at the broad used vehicle market, it's split between private sellers and dealers. And dealers can be used or new, buy here, pay here, or corporate entities. It's just kind of lumped together in my perspective of dealer-based vehicles and private party sales. Now, I will mention that I am always a private party guy. In fact, in all of my years of purchasing vehicles, I've actually only ever purchased one vehicle from a traditional OE manufacturer dealership and one vehicle from a small mom and pop dealership. Other than that, my personal preference is always going to be private party sales. Now, I'm comfortable with that because I believe that I am uniquely equipped with a broad knowledge of what to look for and how to navigate the buying and selling process. Whereas I encounter a lot of people who take solace in purchasing from an established dealership. They believe that there is a trust or relationship-based transaction, regardless of whether it's a small mom and pop or a larger community-based dealership. Whichever process works for you, awesome. I personally like private parties because I tend to believe that I'm getting a fairer deal with potentially more information and accuracy about the vehicle's history and use prior to my ownership. However, buying from a dealership can be a one-stop shop experience where financing, detailing, service, and the right combination of new accessories and dealer options are all kind of bundled together if you're buying a newer vehicle, so it might very well make sense for you. One thing worth addressing is the explosion of the online marketplace in the last decade or so, and most specifically, the ability to buy with a similar dealership experience without ever setting foot on a dealership via something like Carvana or Vroom or some other delivery-based buying experience, and the general private party sales online. This whole interweb buying experience is fascinating and fun. I've personally bought a number of vehicles for people via Carvana simply because, again, I know exactly what I'm looking for and the questions to ask in that initial process, and I've had great experience. But I'm also familiar with general consumers who have gone down that road and had a less than desirable transaction. And so again, it's going to be whatever fits your comfort level. While I really like going to somebody's house and asking them about their vehicle and all the great adventures that it provided them, that might not be comfortable for you. And instead, heading over to a dealership in the daylight and being able to test drive and work with the sales and the financing team might make more sense. Use caution when combining that experience with online sales because you want to protect yourself from scams and from less than desirable vehicles. So if you find yourself navigating that delicate in-between of online marketplaces, definitely consult your friends, potentially a local professional, or again, you can always reach out to us for one of our virtual consult services. Common mistakes first-time buyers almost always make. Pursue reliability. All vehicles have pros and cons, but rarity makes complexity. And if you are chasing particular color combinations or trim levels, you might find yourself in a platform that is more expensive to repair or overall flat out has more things wrong with it. I really caution people to avoid transition years. Now, Jeep is great at this, and we had a good thing going in 87 and in 97, and then arguably in 2007, they introduced new Wrangler models. And I would caution you to avoid any of the 7s. Unfortunately, by the time the JL platform came out, we do this really confusing 2018 and a half crossover thing year. So pretty much avoid the 7s, and 18 is my general cautionary tale. Now, I feel particularly equipped to share that with you because I cut my teeth on arguably the worst Jeep Wrangler ever built, which was a 1987 Jeep YJ Wrangler. While I want to yammer your ear off about how this is arguably the armpit of all Jeeps ever made, I'll spare that for another video and instead caution you to avoid first-year production models in general. Typically speaking, and especially within the Chrysler, Stellantis, Jeep-oriented brands, that product line is getting refined and corrected during its first production year or two. And so those first owners actually are kind of a beta test group of individuals reporting back in an unofficial capacity of whether or not the model that they bought is treating them well or not. Besides avoiding those certain years, don't ignore the immediate red flags. This isn't your ex texting you at 2 a.m. on a Saturday night because you're lonely. There are absolutely red flags when it comes to buying a new to you vehicle. If you ask for a third-party inspection and they're unwilling to allow you to do that, that's a red flag. If the vehicle is an all-wheel drive model and there's only 2 of the 4 tires replaced, that's a red flag. If the chassis has freshly been painted or undercoated without some specific acknowledgement on the seller's behalf, that's a red flag. Fresh, non-professional paint on bumpers, body panels, tops, or interior, that's a red flag. There's a bunch of things that should immediately stand out to the average consumer as making you think, why did they choose to do this just now before selling it? And yet somehow they kind of get twisted up in the sales pitch as almost a positive attribute of the vehicle you're about to receive. It's mind-boggling for me when I read through these for sale listings, and I do because I love that, and I see people passing off polished turds as something great for the next individual. Lastly, don't overestimate your off-road needs. This is specific to the Jeep buying market, largely because of the Rubicon, Wrangler, and Gladiator platforms. I love a Rubicon, and I enjoy the Willys package Jeeps as well. With that said, very few people who fall within the day-to-day utilization of their Jeeps need a Rubicon-equipped vehicle. While not getting into the specific equipment that makes a Rubicon, the big takeaways are the fact that you are going to pay additional for those items that are already installed on your vehicle. If you're never actually going to go off-road in the nature at which they were designed, you just don't need to pay for them. Now, the caveat is, if you just like the status symbol of the side of your Jeep saying Rubicon and having the parts and pieces on it to back up that statement, I fully support you. And I will defend your right and ability to purchase that for your own satisfaction. But again, for the general consumer, the vast majority of you do not actually need a Rubicon, no matter what the salesperson or your weird uncle tell you. If in the future you find yourself actually off-roading significantly enough to need those types of modifications, the aftermarket so fully supports these platforms that you can change out axles and transfer cases and make your Jeep as off-road equipped as you become. My final advice to you is determine what matters most in your vehicle ownership experience. Style, comfort, off-road ability, it all can be had within the latest and greatest Wrangler and Gladiator platforms. Jeep engineers are highly in tune to our community's needs. They've listened to the market and they've built into the Jeep things that we only could have dreamed about 30 plus years ago. These Jeeps are more comfortable and capable than ever before. And so whether or not you want a stripper package with crank windows and a bass stereo, or you want all the power accoutrements, power seats, and heated steering wheel, the world of Jeep is your playground. Be realistic in your expectations. Whether or not this is a daily driven rig or a weekend warrior, you make that decision. Don't ignore the red flags. Buy within a process that makes you most comfortable and seek professional input when it makes sense. All the cool Jeep stuff can be added and modified later. That's what's so awesome about the Wrangler and Gladiator lineages. There are ample aftermarket parts and people dedicated to improving them and making them uniquely yours. I hope that this video serves as a starting point and a guide that points you in the right direction of buying the Jeep that makes the most sense for you. If you're looking for those deeper dives, I'd love for you to check out one of the other videos. Equally, you can leave a comment below. We read and respond to the vast majority of them. Additionally, you're always welcome to send us an email at sfj4x4.com. Hit us up on our text-only number listed below. And if this helped, hit the like and subscribe button and make sure you share it to somebody else who might be starting their Jeep buying journey. Until next time, Jeep on.